JAWAN, starring Shah Rukh Khan and directed by Atlee, just had the biggest day ever for a Hindi movie in the history of the Indian box office. And it seems like that's only the first of dozens of records it's about to break. But is the movie itself any good? We'll tell you next on White Guy Watches Bollywood. Happy JAWAN opening weekend, everybody. I think that the hype must have peaked by now because I don't know how it could go higher. The opening day crowds for this movie, insane. If you live in a country outside of India and you have no idea what I'm talking about or what this movie is, go on YouTube, type in JAWAN opening day crowds, and just take a look, because I mean, if you in America thought that Barbenheimer was a big sensation, you should take a look at the lineup for this movie at like 6:30 a.m. opening day on a Thursday in Mumbai or Delhi. It is extraordinary. I wish we had that kind of movie-going culture still in the US. We don't. And if you think we do, we don't. You know, I know we're in the middle of 2 strikes and things aren't looking up for Hollywood right now, but I think we can aspire to movie-going reaching that level of a fever pitch in America sometime again, because I don't think we've seen that since like the original Star Wars. But I don't want to get sidetracked. I think what you're all here to see is my review of JAWAN. How does the movie live up to the hype? And the answer is it lives up to the hype. It's a good and sometimes very, very good movie. If you were a fan of Pathaan and you like Shah Rukh Khan in general, or you really like action movies in general, I think this movie is for you. For me, it's about on the same level as Pathaan. I think both movies definitely have their virtues, and both Shah Rukh Khan performances are really good. It doesn't quite eclipse it for some reasons I'll get into, but I think it's definitely operating on that same level. I don't want to go too far into spoilers, so just to give you some basic story details, SRK plays Azad, who's a jailer in a women's prison, but that's kind of just his day job, if you will. He's also leading this team of 6 female inmates from the prison, and they kind of go on these vigilante quests for political justice in India. Their identity is totally unknown. This is totally not like a government operation or anything. In fact, it many times is working against the government. So we see them engaged in these missions. The first one is on the metro train in Mumbai, and they take a train hostage in order to kind of extort money to be able to pay off these predatory loans for families of farmers and other working class Indians who were given interest rates that they couldn't possibly keep up with. And then another thread focuses on them shooting a health minister during a public speech, and they hijack the ambulance and they take him to a public hospital, which is one of the very public hospitals that he deprived of resources and services, and they give a 5-hour window that the government can basically replenish the supplies and resources at these government hospitals to be able to save this health minister who is kind of directly responsible for his own fate. So it's a lot of vigilante actions. It's kind of that genre, but on a large scale. And kind of specifically targeting the government. And you kind of see the global wave of populism in politics and economics and popular sentiment reflected in this movie. It's very much about holding government accountable on behalf of the people, and it has a really strong kind of political subtext there that comes to the fore, especially during the climax and later in the movie, in a way that's actually pretty thoughtful and not too heavy-handed, and it doesn't kind of jeopardize the entertainment value. So the actual political subtext of the movie really enriches it. It doesn't detract from kind of the popcorn quality of things, as can often be the case when blockbusters get overly preachy or patronizing. But the big asset here is SRK. And he is really, really good in the movie as Azad. And I don't want to give away too much, but in the opening scene, we're introduced to him in a very different way. He's almost dead. He washes up in a river. He's been shot in what seems to be northern India, in what seems to be kind of a little far back as far as recent history goes. So that kind of puts us on alert. And I don't think I'm giving away too much. Maybe fast forward if you're super, super sensitive to spoilers. But Shah Rukh Khan is definitely playing two roles here. And there's a lot of fun to be had in his kind of treatment of the two roles and the way he plays off of himself, off of the two characters, off of each other, because this is very much a movie where you get the two characters in the same frame at times. But I won't spoil more than that in this review. It's really something that you have to see to behold. But he's just like so effortlessly charismatic in the lead role and in the action, and as this kind of crusader for good ultimately, but he's got this edge to him that you never know, like, could there be a twist where he's not truly the good guy? I mean, where the movie starts out on the metro train, we think he has literally killed a woman in a hijab, shot her dead, and then it's revealed that that was all a stunt in favor of extorting the payment so they can repay these people's loans, whatever. But for a second there, we believe, ooh, this guy could actually really have an edge. So the way that he plays with that and gives you those multiple dimensions of this character who clearly has a past, and a past that will reveal itself over the course of the movie, is really, really engrossing. Like, it's not the deepest character in the world, Azad. I won't tell you too much about the other character he may play. But he knows how to leverage his charisma, and he knows how to make you invest in him and therefore his character. So yeah, it's another really good performance from SRK. The female lead in the movie is played by Nayanthara, and she's also really good, really charismatic. The screen loves her. There's a reason she's a star. And she plays the NSG officer who is charged with negotiating with SRK when he's holding up, subway trains and the like, and also ultimately really taking him down. But the mission goes awry when we realize that, they're actually engaged, and she doesn't know about his second life. It's one of those preposterous, ridiculous kind of movie twists that Bollywood still somehow gets away with. Like, Hollywood can't do it right. But we're just suspending disbelief and like really relishing it because we can't wait for her to learn, and we can't wait to see the aftermath of like, what does that revelation do to their relationship. So it's kind of cheesy, but I ate it up. I think that audiences will too. And the two of them as actors are just so good together. We relish their chemistry together. Like, they can just do no wrong, so it works. The other notable performance of the movie is Vijay Sethupathi as the villain, and he's pretty damn good. He's kind of campy, like hamming it up a little bit, but like intimidating, and like it's very Tarantino-esque. He's got an Altoids tin with a red pill and a blue pill, and one of them he takes for his like anger and anxiety, and it calms him down, and the other one he administers to people to kill them. And sometimes we're looking at that tin like, are you taking the right pill, bro? Really good performance, and it mounts to something. Like, during the climax, the performance really evolves and becomes part of the political commentary I was talking about, and he's really good in the role. Also in the supporting cast are the 6 members of the kind of like squadron of inmates that work with SRK, and they're all fine. Like, there's not really a standout. Only 2 of the characters do we really get to know that much, and I think that's kind of part of my complaints about the movie, which we can get into later, which we don't really get to know those characters as much as they should be. We get little chyrons on the screen saying who they are initially, like describing them with a noun, but you kind of forget them immediately. I couldn't tell you who was who except for the main 2 who have backstories that relate to the missions they go on. As far as other highlights, the action set pieces are pretty good. There's one with trucks that's especially good. Pretty engrossing action, well directed, well choreographed, well shot. Gives you everything you want in a big budget blockbuster. It's on that same level as Pathan, I think, as far as action choreography and dynamism of action and settings for the action. Really enjoyable action set pieces, like maybe not memorable on the same level as like a John Wick or whatever, but the action is really to service the suspense here. And it's the twists and turns of the story that really get us. The whole backstory that unravels itself towards the middle of the movie and plays into the intermission twist, like fantastic. The suspense really builds and the action serves as a punctuation of that building suspense. Like even though the movie tips its cap in certain ways, like the kind of tease of something with another character at the very beginning, it really knows how to keep us in suspense and deliver genuine surprises along the way. There were a few times where, you definitely have that, oh my God, reaction. So it really nails those blockbuster fundamentals as far as cast, action, suspense, having a story that has a little bit more meat on the bone to it as far as political themes and commentary. But it's not a perfect movie. And I think it falls short in 3 areas, really. The first, which I kind of hinted at, is that the 6 inmates who work with SRK, like, they're not super distinguished. They're not super interesting characters. The backstory of the 2 whose kind of histories relate to the missions they go on is interesting and suspenseful, but the other 4, it's like, who are you? I don't really know. And maybe I'll observe more details on those characters when I go back a second time. And believe me, I'm going back to see this one a second time. But I didn't really get a lot of character from them as individuals throughout. And there were opportunities there for like comedic relief and just items of intrigue, interesting banter between them. It doesn't really deliver in that regard. The second issue I have is I don't think the musical numbers are that great. The first one's the best by far, Zinda Banda. That has SRK and like hordes and hordes, the entire prison worth of female inmates dancing together. And that has some kind of interesting choreography and cinematography, and the kind of angular lines that they form in the choreography are interesting. The more kind of romantic focused musical numbers, not great. We literally still have a musical number where we're making hearts like this. And it, CGI animates. I just like, it got to a point where it felt lazy. And in fact, SRK's dancing and stuff in the musical numbers other than Zinda Banda, I don't know if he's just kind of like effortless or if it's a little lazy. It feels like he's not trying as hard at that as he is at the action part of the movie. And then my third criticism is just that at the ending there's a cameo, and I'm not giving it away, no spoilers, from a pretty big star, and they're playing a character who I think will play a pretty big role in a potential sequel, but the twist involving that character's appearance and the revelations regarding that character don't make a lot of sense in terms of what's come before it. Like I was trying to do the math in my head and I'm like, wait, why would that have been? And then they kind of set up a future mission involving this character that also doesn't make a lot of sense with the stated mission of the group that has happened over the course of the movie. And that just, it made the movie end more on a note of me saying, I wonder what that was all about, rather than me feeling like really jazzed by the ending on the whole. So those were really the only three things that held me back from feeling like, oh, this is one of the best blockbusters I've seen in recent years. Instead, it kind of settles for being really, really good, really entertaining, but just missing the mark in a few areas. But as I said, like, expectations were really, really high going into JAWAN, and it mostly met all of those expectations and even exceeded them in some departments for me. It seems like mass audiences are really liking the movie, that it's going to have a huge weekend, maybe even the biggest weekend for a Hindi film in the history of Indian cinema, if it holds up compared to opening day. And really looking forward to seeing how this run goes. It looks like it's going to be a major box office smash. And after a 4-year hiatus between Pathaan and JAWAN, Shah Rukh Khan is definitely back. I mean, bigger than ever as a movie star, maybe the world's biggest movie star at this point. So 4 out of 5 stars from White Guy Watches Bollywood for JAWAN. Please let me know what you thought of the movie in the comments. I'd really like to hear your thoughts about the movie and your thoughts about my review. You can read my full written review of the movie at whiteguywatchesbollywood.com. This has been WGWB.